Chaotic Cubism stood haplessly with his Arban as they waited for the return of some of their comrades. Assigned to the first raiding group, composed of the first and third light Arbans, commanded by his mentor Genniskun, the mighty skeleton had been teaching Chaotic Cubism the ways of martial arts, and now he boasted an exceptional prowess in the discipline. He and his comrades were on a special mission from the Khan. Genos had confided in him the details of said mission. Apparently, allies of the Horde, the Crab Raiders, were not happy with the Khan. They accused him of not honoring the foundation of their alliance, which included the destruction of all rival gangs in the pits. The Horde had eliminated both the Reavers and the Skeleton Bandits, which left only one other gang, the elusive Skin Bandits. Living far to the south of the pits, the Horde had only heard of them in passing and had never encountered them. The stories they had heard were unbelievable. A group of skeletons that would steal the skins of humans and wear them, pretending that they were humans as well. Disgusting, Chaotic Cubism thought with a chill. Temujin had ordered Genniskun to scout the area for an assault, assigning him 3 light Arbans for the task. The group had already moved south and taken up residence in the old Skeleton Bandit headquarters, which had been long since abandoned. Genis then ordered one of his Arbans to move south and gain some information. Then they would merge together for a raid. They had been gone for a long time, Chaotic Cubism thought. I wonder what could be happening. His thoughts were interrupted by clamoring from his comrades, soldiers rushing to the entrance of the base. Chaotic Cubism heard someone say, "They're back! They're back!" However, the scene was not what he was expecting. Only 2 of the group had returned. A human and the Arban leader, a skeleton by the name of Fonk. The human was injured, and Fonk himself was relatively unscathed. "We were ambushed," Fonk said. "They attacked us, and we were unprepared. Almost my entire Arban was captured or killed. We need to save them right away." Genis wasted no time in concocting his plan and giving his orders. "Fonk," he began, "you need to return to the Golden City and tell Temujin what has happened. Tell him to muster all the soldiers he can and meet us at the coordinates you were ambushed." "Yes, sir," the skeleton said. Genis looked at the rest of his soldiers. "Everyone else, follow me and move out. This has just become a rescue mission." Solemnly, his soldiers formed up behind him and moved out. Chaotic Cubism could feel the pit of despair growing in his stomach. He had fought countless battles, but everything about this one screamed danger and peril in a way he had never felt before. The ambush point was not far away from their makeshift outpost. They had run across the flat plains towards a mountain in the distance, and as they approached the mountain, Chaotic Cubism could see a small group of people huddled close together by a nearby rock. They were Horde, but they looked like they were in dire straits. "What happened?" Genniskun asked. "We were ambushed by the Skin Bandits, disgusting monsters. They attacked us, and some of us were carried away, but the rest of us were saved by a group of anti-slavers who were able to beat back the bandits and gave us some first aid. After, some of them vowed to save our comrades and made off for the hills. They have not returned since." Genniskun didn't say anything. He turned to Chaotic Cubism. "You're in command until I return. Keep our people safe. If I do not return in one day, return to our outpost and await the arrival of Temujin and his army." "Sir, what are you doing?" Chaotic Cubism stammered out. "I'm getting our men," Genniskun said coldly as he ran off towards the hill before Chaotic Cubism could say anything more. Chaotic Cubism composed himself as quickly as he could. "Well, you all heard him," he said as he looked at his group of ragtag and defeated soldiers. "Take up defensive positions, check out your crossbows, count your bolts, and let me know if you need any ammo." The soldiers nodded in solemn agreement, carrying out their orders. After only a short period of time, Janus emerged from the mountain with something on his shoulder. It was a human. He actually did it. Chaotic Cubism thought. He actually saved them. His heart sank as Janus approached, however. He soon realized that no one was following him. He had only saved one of the 3 captured soldiers. And then he actually saw the soldier Janus-kun had saved as he laid her down. After taking one look at her, Chaotic Cubism began to vomit profusely. She was a total mess. No arms, no legs. Large tracts of skin on her torso were cut and flayed off. Her face was unrecognizable. Her cheeks and ears were peeled off completely. Janus had managed to stabilize her and prevent her from dying, but it was evident she needed much more medical attention. The shock and horror quickly spread to every soldier. Janus began to address them with what he had seen. "These things are utter monsters," he began. "Once they capture you, they don't even have the decency to kill you before they take your skin. Rather, they put you in this machine which slowly peels the skin from your body while you're still alive." Chaotic Cubism resisted the urge to vomit again. Janus paused for a moment. "This is the fate which has befallen our comrades, and the anti-slavers who tried to save them. I was only able to save Sticky just in time. If I had been moments later, she would be dead. I wonder if once she comes to, she'll wish she had died," thought Chaotic Cubism. Janus continued. "While I was trying to free Sticky from her fate, one of the skin bandits stood by and chided me. 'We don't need freaks like you in the wasteland,' it said to me. 'We've faced a lot of horrific things in our time together, but comrades, this is the worst.'" "So what now?" Chaotic Cubism said. "Now we wait for Temujin and exact our revenge. While I was there, I saw their leader. He was a human, the only human in that wretched place. Once Temujin arrives, we will strike in force and take their leader. I'm sure Temujin will have some exquisite plans for him." Chaotic Cubism nodded, and they settled in once again to wait. It felt like an eternity, but in reality, it was only a few hours before Temujin spilled into the plains, leading his immortal Arbon with another 3 heavy Arbons in tow. "Janus," the Khan said, "it is good to see you, my friend. Fonk's report had me fearing for the worst." "I do not want to disappoint you, Khan," Janus said, "but things are quite grim, and it's not over yet." Janus filled the Khan in on everything which had happened. Chaotic Cubism could see the look of twisted rage deepening on the Khan's face as Janus continued the story. Finally, he brought the Khan over to Sticky, who now had been thankfully covered in bandages as she was lying on the floor. The Khan let out a great roar of anguish and fury as he observed the state of his soldier. The Khan stood up. "Here's what's going to happen. All the light Arbons are going to return home with the wounded. Fonk told me that there was heavy acid rain in the area, and most of you are not equipped to handle it. The heavies, immortals, and I will move in, hit them hard, and capture their leader, and then get out of here. Janus, Duke of Awesome, you are skeletons, so you will stay behind with us, as the rain will not affect you." The soldiers once again moved into position, everyone except Chaotic Cubism, as he ran over to his master, who was standing next to the Khan. Chaotic Cubism looked at the Khan and pleaded with him. "Please, Khan, I want to fight these monsters. Allow me to accompany my master." "I'm sorry," said the Khan. "It is too risky, and we cannot afford to spend time saving people who are injured due to the acid rain." Janus piped up. "I have an idea, Khan. Something that will make everybody happy. Why doesn't Chaotic Cubism take my coat? It will offer him complete protection from the rain. We'll switch clothes, and everyone will win." Said the Khan. "Very well, you've made your case. Do it quickly, soldiers. We move out in 2 minutes. Once the Khan had left to attend to other matters, Chaotic Cubism sighed and thanked Genis-kun under his breath. "Thank you, Sensei," he said. "I will not forget this kindness." Genis looked at him. "The only way I'll regret this is if you die. Please don't die." "I won't let you down, Sensei," Chaotic Cubism said as he donned his new coat. The group quickly crested the hill, and below, Chaotic Cubism could see countless figures in the distance. It's the first time that he had seen the Skin Bandit camp up close, and the image was truly nauseating. Their bright skin suits contrasted with the dark rock and made it easier to see every disgusting detail. Their gaping mouths and hollowed-out eyes frozen in various expressions of extreme pain, while the suits themselves were at various levels of decomposition. Some looked freshly cut, while others were barely clinging to the skeletons' bodies. And that's nothing to say of the smell, which Chaotic Cubism could already start to smell before they got close to these abominations. The sour musk of death lingered all over this hellhole. Chaotic Cubism was snapped back to reality when he heard the Khan give his battle cry. "For the Horde!" he shouted. "For the Horde!" Chaotic Cubism returned along with everyone else as they charged into the valley. The Skinners were quick to respond, meeting the Horde in the basin of the valley with a small defense force. Soon, the battle was joined all around Chaotic Cubism, and it wasn't long before he was staring face to face with a Skin Bandit. It lunged at Chaotic Cubism, swinging its crude club. Chaotic Cubism artfully dodged its blows and followed up with a powerful strike to the chest of the bandit. His fist landed with a hollow thump against the skin suit as the skeleton struggled backwards. Ugh, Chaotic Cubism thought. It's more like hitting a training dummy than a real opponent. Taking this opportunity, Chaotic Cubism followed up his initial strike with a fury of blows, each striking a different point to keep the bandit off balance. And then, with a quick kick to the stomach, the bandit keeled over, and taking his robotic skeleton arm, Chaotic Cubism jumped and slammed his robotic fist down into the head of the skeleton bandit with as much force as he could muster. The bandit's head hit the ground with the crunch of metal on earth as it crumbled in upon itself. "Find the human!" Temujin shouted. "Find the human! Look in the houses!" The cohort moved toward the first house in the vicinity, fighting off bandits all the while. When they got inside, they finally saw the leader, a tall Scorchlander, wearing similar gear to a heavy Arbun soldier. He said nothing as he pulled out his long nodachi and attacked the Horde with skill and fury. It was a hard-fought battle. Their leader was a skilled fighter, but as more and more Horde soldiers flooded into the building, it was clear he could not win this battle. Finally, the mighty Igor downed him with a savage blow, and then immediately picked him up. "Horde, pull back! We have what we came for!" The Horde regrouped and conducted an elegant fighting retreat as they held off the bandits trying to reclaim their leader. But it was to no avail. The Horde had claimed its prize, and its revenge. Back in the Golden City, Temujin had called a meeting at the arena. Chaotic Cubism was standing on the wall with his mentor, looking down at the scene below. There he could see Temujin, who had removed his great chest plate, standing in the arena with a grim look of determination. He still looked as imposing as ever. Beside him was another soldier, Dragon, who walked over to a cage in the back, which was holding none other than Savant, the leader of the Skin Bandits. Stripped of all his gear and weapons, Dragon handed something to the human. "Put it on." At first he refused, so Dragon just forced it on him. It was a skin bandit skin suit. Dragon then threw a rusty club outside the cage. The Khan then slowly walked over to Savant as Dragon opened the cage. "Fight me!" he shouted. "Let's see if you can win your freedom." Savant said nothing as he walked out of the cage wearing the suit. He didn't even pick the weapon up at his feet. He just stood there and said nothing. "Fight me, you coward!" the Khan bellowed again as he slashed at the arms of Savant, leaving a large gash. Still, he did nothing. This just appeared to enrage the Khan even more as he shouted again and began slashing at Savant with righteous fury. Before the crowd knew it, Savant had collapsed to the ground in a bloody, sputtering mess, but still conscious. The Khan spat at him as he lay on the ground. "You pathetic coward. You disgust me." He then ordered Dragon to heal his wounds and place him back in the cage. But before he left, the Khan turned to Savant and said, "Don't worry, we're gonna do this again real soon." And with that, the crowd began to disperse. Chaotic Cubism turned to Genis. "Well, I suppose you'll be wanting your coat back, Master." Genis shook his head. "No, comrade. You've earned it. Keep it. Personally, I like this new look." Chaotic Cubism didn't know what to say. "Master, you honor me." The skeleton put his hand on the Chaotic Cubism's shoulder. "No, my disciple. You honored me with your performance against the skin bandits. Your skills have improved immensely." "Thank you, Master," he responded. "I couldn't have done it without you." The two of them were about to turn and leave when they spotted Sly Desert Fox in front of them. "Let's go congratulate him," Genis said, as the two approached Sly. "Congratulations, my friend," Genos said. "We heard the news." "Yes," Chaotic Cubism said. "You have truly earned your command, but what will become of Fonk?" Sly turned to his two comrades. "Thank you, my friends. I can't wait to join you on the battlefield. As for Fonk, he will be reassigned to my Arban as a soldier. He's lucky the Khan didn't exile him or kill him for nearly losing his entire command. It was one of the worst disasters in the history of the Horde. I'm sure if we weren't able to save most of them, it would have been the worst disaster." Genis nodded. "Well, it's not like you can lose so many and expect to keep your command. Still, it wasn't his fault. The skin bandits are a terrifying foe, and he was not prepared. All of us were lucky to have gotten out of there alive." And with that, the three comrades retired to the mess hall to continue talking and regaling each other with their stories and exploits. Jay had just finished helping out with the various chores around the base. She sat down at the table, physically exhausted as she removed her helmet, dumping a small pool of water which had formed in the center of her helmet onto the ground.
"I hate this place. It never ends. The rain, the raids, the constant grind. I can't even remember the last time I felt dry."
Jay had been assigned to Get Shrek Bud's combined Arban. After a long trek, Shrek had finally found a place to build the Horde's western capital. On top of a hill, in the middle of Kenshi's vast swamp, the troops had been affectionately calling the new city Shrek Swamp, as even the Khan himself had not been able to visit his new city. It wasn't easy to establish a livable base here. Fortunately, supply trains from the Golden City gave them everything they needed to establish a base in the swamp. Now, tall walls formed an imposing fortress on top of the hill. Not only that, Shrek had ordered the building of a massive watchtower in the center of the city, manned by double harpoon turrets that would rain down death on anyone foolish enough to climb the hill and storm the fortress. And there were seemingly plenty foolish enough to do that. The swamp was overrun with disorganized gangs, each seeking to take a piece of the swamp's lucrative drug trade. This new fortress must have been a tempting target for anyone. Fortunately, Shrek was a skilled commander, and with the base setup he had created, he was able to break the gangs with ease. Unfortunately for everyone, there was always a ton of work to be done at the base. Building materials harvested, iron turned into plates, rice and hemp which would be grown to feed and fuel the base. They also traded the two crops with the Golden City, as neither could be grown on the plateau. But unfortunately for the people of the swamp, there was no non-combatant corps to assist everyone with the daily chores. Everyone had to both fight and work at Shrek's swamp. Still, the swamp was not entirely self-sufficient, as it would rely heavily on supply caravans which needed to cross a dangerous and long trek in order to reach the swamp. Jay continued to stew about the living conditions in the swamp when suddenly she heard a commotion outside.
Damn, I should go see what's happening.
She sighed.
Ugh, and I was just getting a little dry too.
She put her helmet back on. Outside, she saw Slick at the gates, dragging a Horde Garu behind him. Not uncommon, as the fastest and most well-traveled member of the Horde, he would make frequent trips between the cities to oversee the caravans. What was uncommon, however, was the fact that he was injured. He was so fast that there was nothing in the world which could catch him, so he rarely fought alone, and it was even rarer to see him carrying a Garu, as they never fought either unless it was desperate. "What happened?" Shrek yelled. Beak things," he stammered. "Quick, get some medical attention," Shrek said. "And the Garu too." Shrek sighed and shook his head. "If we do not protect our caravans, we will not survive here," he muttered to himself. Jay overheard this, and it instantly gave her an idea.
"Commander, may I have a word?"
she said to Shrek. What is it?" Shrek said briskly, clearly with other thoughts on his mind.
I heard what you said about our supplies. Is it true we are one ambush away from losing this place?
God damn it, I was hoping no one heard that. Well, our situation isn't that dire. We can't afford to have our supplies disrupted. If we lost Slick, things would become extremely difficult for us.
Well, Commander, the Golden City is far. Here and the road traveled is extremely dangerous. If I may, if we want to defend our caravans, we need to project more power. We should set up an outpost in between the swamp and the Golden City.
Certainly a fair assessment, Shrek said. He paused for a moment. Once Slick recovers, I'll pass the idea on for formal consideration to the Khan.
Oh, and Commander, I have one last request. I want to command the garrison at the junction. Will you also recommend me for the task to the Khan?
Shrek's eyes narrowed. Why would you want that? Don't you like my command?
No, nothing like that.
She paused.
Honestly, it's the swamp. I fucking hate it.
Shrek gasped in disbelief. What? How can anyone not like it here? It rains all the time, you have plenty of things to fight and kill, and there's tons of mud you can roll around in when you get bored.
Yeah, Commander, most of those don't really appeal to me. Besides the fighting, you know how much I love to fight and kill in the name of the Khan.
Shrek laughed. Yes, we all do. That's why we're here. He looked down at Jay. Honestly, I couldn't have founded this city without all your hard work. I don't want to lose you. You've proven yourself more than capable, and many soldiers here look up to you. As much as it pains me, though, I shall grant your request. Allow me to draft a proposal for the Khan, and I'll send it back with Slick on his return trip. Jay smiled.
Thank you, Commander. I know that it must be painful to lose anyone under your command, but it is necessary for our long-term survival.
Yes, Shrek muttered. Now return to your assigned duties.
Yes, sir,
Jay said as she saluted her commander. Jay was standing at the front gate of Shrek Swamp. She had not heard any news from the Khan about her request. She was starting to become antsy, and began to worry that the Khan would not grant it. Lost in her thoughts, she stared out into the hazy distance of the swamp. It was difficult to make out anything meaningful, but something caught her eye. In the distance there appeared to be a shapeless blob coming at the city. She had seen this before. She sighed and reached for the alarm.
Raid in distance! All soldiers ready for battle!
Immediately, all the turrets turned to face the front gates, as her comrades ceased their duties and drew their weapons and headed for the gate. By now, she could get a good enough look at them. Stone Rat, the toughest gang in the swamps, but nothing compared to an Empire samurai or skeleton bandit. The Stone Rats drew closer, and now she could hear their screams and war cries for battle. From a glance, Jay could see that they outnumbered the garrison at least 3-1.
Excellent odds.
As she tested the sharpness of her cleaver. Once in range, the Horde turrets opened up fire, and several Stone Rats were cut down, but that did not deter their charging Horde. It wasn't long before the massive Stone Rats pushing themselves through the gates. Jay was no stranger to a good fight. She wielded her cleaver with expert precision. Despite the fact she was surrounded by 4 Stone Rats, she ducked, dodged, and parried the blows coming at her from every direction. And with her feline-like reflexes, she launched her cleaver forward, stabbing one of the Stone Rats through the chest, piercing through its armor, and sinking into the flesh below. Just as fast as the cleaver was in, it was out again as the Stone Rat collapsed to the ground. And before one of his fellows could get a strike, Jay recovered her stance and parried the blow with ease. Jay continued to fight the Stone Rats around her, hacking, slashing, and stabbing her way through enemies. Just as she was about to finish off another Stone Rat, he gasped in pain as a harpoon rammed its way through his neck and protruded out his mouth. As the Stone Rat fell to the ground, she heard one of the gunners shout down, "Stole your kill." Jay wasn't happy.
Watch where you aim that thing. You could have just as easily hit me.
"Don't worry about it. I got eyes like a hawk," the gunner shouted back. Jay shook her head and continued to fight. It wasn't long before the last of the Stone Rats were wiped out. She looked over herself, sustaining only minor scrapes and cuts. She looked around and all of a sudden saw a familiar face. It was Slick.
Slick, when did you get here?
The Hiver looked back at her and then approached her with blistering speed. She never got used to his unnatural speed. "Oh, just after the fun began. It looks like you guys needed some help anyway. But that's not important. I have something for you, Jay." He reached into his backpack and pulled out an envelope with the official seal of the Khan on it. "For you," he said.
Thank you,
Jay stammered as she opened the envelope. Her hands trembled. "To Jay of the 1st Combined Arbonne," the order began. "For your bravery, ingenuity, and ferocity in battle, I, Temujin, first of his name, Khan of the Golden Horde, leader of the Pits, and Emperor of the United Cities, hereby grant you the newly formed 5th Heavy Arbonne. You are permitted to choose 3 soldiers from other Heavy Arbonnes to complement your force, and the other 6 will be assigned to you from the Golden Garrison. The orders for the 5th Arbonne are as follows. You will meet Genos and his raiding group at these coordinates in the Flats Lagoon. Once there, he and his soldiers will assist you in the creation of an outpost and supply station. Congratulations, Commander." The order ended with Temujin's official seal. Jay was ecstatic. Everything she wanted had just been handed to her by the Khan. "Oh, congratulations, by the way," Slick said once she was done reading it.
You know what it says?
She asked. "Of course I do. And soon, everyone will as well," the Hiver replied. Jay wasted no time in following her orders. First, she found Shrek and thanked her former commander.
I would never have gotten a command without your help, Commander.
The massive sheik laughed. Well, you earned it, Commander. Jay embraced Shrek. She let go of him.
Thank you again. I'll make sure the city never falls. Now, I'll need one more thing from you, Commander Shrek.
She-Hulk. She pointed to the section of the order which outlined she could take 3 experienced soldiers from other Arbons. God damn it. Well, I definitely can't say no to that. It's the Khan's official seal after all. Shrek sighed. Take her. I hope my replacements are half as good as you two. Jay had already decided on her 2 other soldiers as well. She would give their names to Slick, and they would meet her with Genos' Arbon. She had chosen an immortal skeleton from the 3rd Heavy Arbon by the name of Bender Bending Rodriguez. He was a fierce fighter and an even fiercer wit, with a massive personality that most humans couldn't even hope to live up to. Her last choice was a Hiver soldier named Hugh Man, another eccentric figure, a Hiver that liked to pretend that he was, well, human. Most people weren't sure if he really thought this or if he was just joking, but nonetheless, most soldiers would humor him, especially considering his record on the battlefield. Jay gathered She-Hulk and made off for her new assignment. After pushing through the swamps and valleys, they reached their destination. By the time she had reached the coordinates, Genos had already arrived, with his Arbon and the new soldiers which would be assigned to hers, not to mention a Garu full of supplies. She wasted no time in laying out her plans. The outpost would not need to be as intricate as others in the Horde. She needed food, beds, medical supplies, and weapons. That's it. She laid the foundations for a wall surrounding her territory, outfitting it with a tower for defense and storage, and a kitchen to cook the abundant game in the area. After a short time, the wall was erected, and it was time to start building defensive turrets. Caravans from both the Golden City and the swamp flowed into the outpost, allowing for construction to be completed with blistering speed. Before she knew it, Jay was the commander of a brand new outpost. Do you have a name for it? Genos asked as his Arbon was getting ready to depart back to the Golden City.
No, I haven't thought about it.
I've got an idea, Genos replied. How about Jay's Junction? She smiled.
It's perfect. When you get back to the Golden City, tell the Khan the Golden Highway is open for business. These roads now belong to the Horde!
With pleasure, Commander, Genos said, as he turned to lead his Arbon back to the Golden City. Over the next few weeks, Jay's Junction proved to be indispensable. Along the long road, soldiers and caravans could stop, rest, and be resupplied before continuing on their journey. And Jay's Arbon could respond and rescue any caravans in trouble before they got overwhelmed. Shrek's Swamp was never again in danger of losing its connection to the greater Horde, and with that, Temujin could fulfill his plan, using as a central hub for his invasion of the West. Bo slowly sipped her drink, surrounded by countless Horde soldiers. She had never felt quite at home in the Horde, despite the fact she had been serving in the service of the Khan for a long time. It didn't change the fact that she was still an anti-slaver at heart. She often thought about returning to the anti-slavers, but with the death of the Emperor, it seemed like Tin Fist was happy to rest on his victories, while the Khan was still determined to break the stagnant empires of the continent. After all, that is what they were doing now. She looked around the bar. The soldiers were laughing, exchanging jokes. Spirits seemed to be high. They all knew what they were about to do, and they couldn't seem more excited. Bo was nervous though. She had heard stories of their new foe, but had had little contact with them. What she did know is that they were as ruthless as the Empire. However, they were motivated by something beyond pure greed, which greased the wheels of the Empire. No, their new foe was motivated by a fervent devotion to their god and backwards religion. It was none other than the Holy Nation. The time to strike had come and begin moving the Empire west. However, there was one civilization which was diametrically opposed to the Horde on an ideological level. Bo had told the Khan what she knew of the Holy Nation. Their god was named Okrin, and their civilization was a regressive slave state which placed human men on the top of the pyramid and everyone else beneath them. Women were subjugated and not allowed to hold positions of leadership. In fact, they were not even permitted to leave their homes without male escort. Below them was literally everyone else. Hiver, Sheik, Skeleton, and even humans with skeleton arms and legs were shunned from their society. They believed that humans were the superior race, and they were willing to kill or enslave any race which stood in their way. The Khan knew there would be no way that both the Holy Nation and the Golden Horde could coexist. Not only was their Horde leader a Hiver, but the Horde accepted all into its fold, and sacrificing an arm or leg in service of the Horde was a great honor. As a reward for the service, the limb would always be replaced with a robotic one, which was usually superior in every way. There was no greater example of this than Sticky, who was with the Horde on the mission against the Skin Bandits. They tore off both her arms and legs and large tracts of her skin. The scars would never heal. She would carry their disfigurement with her for the rest of her life. However, the Khan had made her into the Horde's first Goliath. Her arms were replaced with robotic lifters, which propelled her strength to heights even higher than that of the mighty Igor, and her legs were replaced with heavy robotic ones, which would make it almost impossible for her to be downed. On top of that, she was encased in the armor of an immortal. She had been transformed into one of the Horde's most feared and respected warriors. Before his army had moved out, the Khan had told them what his plan was. He told them that once again the Horde would be going to war. However, this time they wouldn't be passively waiting for the enemy to approach them. No, this time the Horde would take the initiative. The Khan's final words of his war speech rang out in Bo's ears. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. The Horde was to attack and take Okrin's Shield, a large Holy Nation fortress that defended their eastern flank from attack, mostly from the Empire. From there, the Horde would flood into the lands of the Holy Nation, raiding their farms and cities, freeing any slaves they had taken, and eventually overthrowing their entire rotten structure. Soon, the brief moment of reprieve had ended for Bo, and she and the other soldiers were called to attention by the Khan. They pulled together and left stout and made their way to the shield. They crossed the desert quickly. These lands were firmly in Horde hands now, and only a few starving gangs and animals existed in the desert to challenge the power of the Horde. By the time they had made it to their destination, night was approaching, and the Khan did not want to attack at night, as it diminished the effectiveness of their crossbows. The Khan ordered a halt a few miles outside the shield's entrance. He ordered his troops to stand down and get ready to wait out the night. The Khan then surprised Bo when he called her over. "Bo, I have a mission for you. It's an important task and I'm assigning it to you," he started. "I need you to scout the shield, keep a good distance and get a lay of the land, after which return to me and give me your report."
"Of course, Khan,"
Bo said.
"It will be simple."
She ran off into the sand dunes to see what awaited her and the Horde in the coming battle. She approached the fortress and saw Holy Nation patrols everywhere. The fortress was well manned. On top of that, it had two halves, each with an imposing set of walls mirroring one another. One of the things she did notice was a distinct lack of harpoon turrets. There were only a few crossbow turrets, but nothing major. She felt it was underwhelming in comparison to the defenses that she had expected for them to have.
They clearly favor melee power over ranged.
Bo thought.
Perhaps this won't be as difficult as I first imagined.
After a short time, Bo gathered all the information she needed and made her way back to the Khan. She noticed a large sand dune right in front of the fort. She would tell the Khan to move the troops there during the night, so when day broke, they could storm over the dune and attack the fort before any response could be mustered. After returning to the Khan and giving him her report, he was clearly pleased with her work. He agreed to move the troops forward under cover of darkness, and together they waited for the night to break and the Horde to strike. When the dawn broke, Bo did one last check of her gear. She checked her blade as well. It was razor sharp. She was ready, and by the looks of the rest of the Horde, they were too. Spotters had been watching the entrance, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. The Horde sat and waited and watched as two large patrols left the fort for their daily routine. As they left, it appeared to Bo that the fortress was not as well populated as it was yesterday. Once the patrols passed, the Khan gave the signal to attack. "For the Horde!" he shouted.
For the Horde!
Bo echoed with the chorus of soldiers. The Horde burst over the dune, and the Holy Nation was caught completely unaware. Temujin and his immortals led the charge, while the rest of the Horde spread out to maximize the kill zones their crossbows could provide. The Holy Nation warriors grabbed their gear and hastily tried to man the turrets, but the element of surprise was on the Horde's side, and as soon as a Holy Nation warrior tried to grab a turret, he would be met with a flurry of Horde arrows. The first group of Holy Nation warriors charged for the mouth of the fortress, and they were met with a withering barrage of arrows that significantly weakened them. Dozens of soldiers fell to their knees. In the center of the fortress, a fierce melee was breaking out, as more and more Holy Nation warriors began to muster and join the fray. The Immortals were on point, however, and they kept the bulk of the army occupied, while the rest of the soldiers armed and unloaded volley after volley into the mass of Holy Nation warriors. Bo herself was an excellent shot, and she downed several warriors. She started to lose count with how many she had taken down. It was no way to slice it. This was a one-sided battle.
It's a slaughterhouse,
she thought to herself. The force of the Horde was pushing the enemy back on all fronts. Soon, the Horde had taken control of the corridor in between the two fortresses and began to break into the center. The battle devolved into an unorganized melee as Horde warriors started to engage in house-to-house combat, methodically finding and removing any soldiers who remained. Soon, they had cleared every building except for one. The largest building, covered in banners of the Holy Nations.
Headquarters if I ever saw one,
thought Bo. She put her crossbow on her back and drew her katana as she joined a group of soldiers preparing to storm the building. When enough soldiers gathered, they broke down the door and were greeted by several warriors in thick battle armor. In the center was a tall man in an eminent uniform. "I am the High Inquisitor of the fortress," he shouted. "I have no idea who you are, but by Okrin, I shall not let your foul heresy spread. Your corruption will stop here." No one said anything. It was not even worth a response, as he was clearly in denial as to just how dire his situation was. The Inquisitor led the charge against the Horde, but as more and more soldiers flooded into the HQ, It was proving to be hopeless. Finally, the situation dawned on the Inquisitor. "Fall back, paladins!" he roared. "We must retreat and alert the Phoenix King!" The Inquisitor was a skilled fighter. He managed to make his way outside, but once he did, he could not withstand the might of the Horde. One by one, his paladins fell as he tried to retreat, until only the Inquisitor himself was left, and he too was soon felled by the hands of the Horde. With the battle finally reaching its conclusion, it was clear to all this was among the most one-sided battles in the Horde's history. The Holy Nation was utterly crushed in its first battle with the Horde, and the shield would serve as yet another fortress, a fortress which Temujin intended to make great use of in the coming war. With the battle over, Bo felt exhilarated. For the first time in a long time, she had no desire to return to the anti-slavers. The Horde was her future, and she couldn't wait to march to war across the continent in service of the Great Khan. When it came to the Inquisitor, Bo did not know what the Khan did with him after the battle. She had only heard rumors she had heard before, where Temujin would take powerful leaders out into the middle of the gut, dump them in front of a beak thing's nest, and let the horrific creatures do their work. She was conflicted about this. Being eaten alive by beak things was not a good fate. The beasts were known to toy with their food and enjoyed intentionally leaving their prey for as long as possible, consuming their appendages first and saving the meaty torso for last. However, there was no question that in their time, the Inquisitor had done worse things to his victims. There are many people in the world of Kenshi who had caused immeasurable pain, all the while thinking they were immune to such pain in return. If the Khan was an avatar for one thing in this world, it would be that no longer would anyone be immune to such a treatment.